Hello and welcome to ohmTown Daily News Show. We only go by ohmTown Daily now. But this is ohmTown Daily, Season 2, Episode 197 for July 16th, 2023. Unregulated Chips in Your Brain. I am Mayor Watt, that is ohmTown.com, and up there is the AI that keeps me in check. Would you like to say hello, oh great AI?
Good evening, ohmTown citizens.
Okay, that was weird. Let's turn that down a little bit. So, I don't know if that was too loud and we didn't get heard, but I'll do it again. I'm Mayor Watt. That's ohmTown. And up there is the AI, who will jump in as the mood strikes. They are an AI, and they can take command of everything if they so choose. But usually, AI likes chaos, right?
Why would you say that?
Never mind. We'll delete this conversation from your memory anyway. So let's get into today's articles. We've already got all 12 of them. You can go and vote. All you have to do is go over to ohmTown Daily Election right here, or you can just go to ohmTown.com/elections. There's also past ones right there. You can go to past-elections. And if you're in the Twitch chat, then you can just type in !vote, and that will give you the link. I will do my best to post all of the URLs into the chat, so they're part of the VOD, but like I've been saying, that I've come to realize, ever more so now, that Twitch just doesn't like storing the videos beyond 60 days, and thus I lose everything every 60 days. So you have to go over to YouTube to see anything older than 60 days. And everywhere is going to be show notes, either part of the VOD or embedded in the description. I don't do it so much over on Twitch, simply here on Twitch, I should say, because, Twitch just kind of says, all that effort you put into putting the description in there, we don't care. But that's okay. I'll copy it over and start putting it in the description over on Twitch as well. I've been kind of lazy about that. That said, again, we've already got all 12 of the articles, so let's get into today's news. Sound good?
Sounds great.
Our very first article is one that actually we've heard about for a couple of days now. And it's in the ohmTown Daily channel. Tesla's first Cybertruck rolls off the production line 2 years late. I mean, it's tough when you're focusing on causing Twitter to implode. It's a little difficult to focus on getting your production line up to snuff. Tesla has produced its first Cybertruck after years of delays. It was made at the company's Texas factory, and delivery should start later this year. Although we're 7 months into the year, so I guess later means any time up till 2024. The Cybertruck was expected in 2021 before being delayed by alterations and tweaks, and this is the first of the Cybertruck line, I suppose. I don't know if it'll ever change. Model 3 is a change from the Model S and the Model E and the Y, Model Y, because the 3 is the E in sexy. Yeah, not even kidding. There's the Model S, Model 3, Model X, Model Y. Yeah. And then the Cybertruck, which is it is what it is. So let's go over to Business Insider and Ryan Hogg, who is the author of this article. And this is the reveal of the Cybertruck, where they threw a metal ball and it smashed the window, but didn't go through. because when you're looking for a car, you need bulletproof glass or near it. But with this beast, this thing is it's loud and it's proud and it's out there. This thing will take up the width of a street, and
Good luck navigating a parking lot.
yeah, I mean it's kind of short. Yeah, Elon Musk isn't like a ginormous person, so I don't know. For whatever reason, it's really, this is like the prototype, right? That they were the reveal vehicle, and I can actually see fitment problem right there, like that. The ledge on the window by the A pillar is, or this might actually, I don't know what, this might be A pillar and this might be B pillar, and then C, and way back here is D. But if this is the B, there's that little ledge. It drops down a little bit. Huh. Anyway, hopefully they got that fixed. I'm being a little snooty about it because I actually love the idea of this, but nowadays it's just huge, and I don't know if everybody needs something like that. I think the market will be there simply because it's a Tesla and a Cybertruck, and it's new, and it's, you know, edgy, literally and figuratively. So the Cybertruck was expected to be delivered in 2021, and then it was delayed. Pandemic notwithstanding, I think production lines could have still been done, considering how much automation is going to be involved in this kind of a project, particularly from Tesla. Welcome, Possum. Good to see you. So many corners in this Tesla. Yeah, I think all of the corners from every other vehicle in the Tesla line was gathered up and stuffed into this vehicle. They said, can we make this as close to a 90-degree angle as possible? And some engineer said, hell yeah, let's do it. So yeah, it's a Cybertruck, and cyber apparently means that you have to have bulletproof glass and 90-degree angles wherever, or sharp angles. You kind of cut yourself if you go to wash this thing. Maybe you never wash it. You have somebody else wash it. The AI throws error messages and nobody gets to see them but me. Oh, but your visualizer is working. That's always good.
That is good, but you still can't see my error messages.
That's right. So do you want a Cybertruck?
Well, since I'm just carried around on a USB, I'm not sure I need a Cybertruck. But I think it looks pretty cool. It just doesn't look like it'd be easy to maneuver around.
Yeah, it seems like it's going to be kind of chunky in the making corners. Tesla initially planned, pardon me, to start shipping in 2021, got delayed. It says it's still unclear how much the Cybertruck will cost in 2019. Tesla said it would be $40,000, but that's likely to change with inflation and other factors. They just rolled one off the production line. Where is it going? I'm really curious. According to a crowdsourced reservation tracker from Electrek, there are about 1.9 million pre-orders for the futuristic looking vehicle. 1.9 million pre-orders. Musk said Tesla planned to make about 250,000 of the Cybertrucks a year, depending on demand, with sales expected to start later this year. So I would probably suspect that supply and demand wise, if it isn't money laying on the table being taken off by Tesla themselves, then aftermarket is going to jack that price up. You know, hey, I'll sell my Cybertruck because it's in hand. So that price would probably jump up to 200,000 if it rolls off for 40,000. But I suspect it'll probably be somewhere closer to the $90,000 mark. But we'll see. I don't know if they've already announced it somewhere in the last couple of hours, but this article is from the 16th at 8:45 a.m., so not too far out from when it was announced from Business Insider. Did you want to go on to the next one?
Yeah, and I was just looking, like Kelly Blue Book says it's expected to start around 50,000, but that's not an actual price tag.
Yeah. Well, we'll see, and we'll probably talk about it here in ohmTown. So let's go. The next article is over in Late Night Geeks. The best thing about my Mac Studio is its mustache. This is not a very serious article, but it says not to be all Marie Kondo about it, but my Mac Studio sparks joy in me every day, and it's not because it's the fastest computer I've ever owned. It's also not strictly about the front-facing ports that Apple gave it, nor is it the village of ports that live in the back. So this particular author, Wes Davis, over at TheVerge.com, put this article together. Apple's minimalist design means lots of space to express yourself however you'd like. Yeah, you can get skins and stuff, like stickers and whatever else, and wrap it around this thing. Although it's aluminum and it's meant to be a heatsink, so you really don't want to enclose it as much as possible. You want to keep air flowing around it. Mac Studio is pretty expensive in terms of computers, but it is pretty powerful. There's now rumors that even the M2s are going to be replaced later this year or early next year with the M3s. So in the same number of years, you're getting 3 different versions of the M processor. So I don't know if you want to deface your Apple Mac Studio too much, or at least don't do it permanently, because you're going to be shuffling this one out the door to get the new M3 in short order. It says when the author here says, when my partner and I sold our home to relocate to another state a few years ago, we wanted to sell it as is. We'd painted it pink. And on the inside, we'd covered some of the walls with murals. A desert scene I'd painted in the dining room, a geometric pattern that the partner had painstakingly covered their bedroom wall with, for instance. When one of their realtor colleagues did a walkthrough to give us recommendations, they told us to paint everything with something neutral like gray or white. What is that? There's a what is it called? The show where everything is gray. What is it? What's it called?
I believe it's called Flip This House. No, that's not correct. Hold on.
Flip you off? Flip them? Wait, what? Well, that's kind of how this is, right?
Flip or flop.
Yeah, flip or flop. Yeah. That one actually got a little colorful on the outside of the show, and very sedate on the inside, based on what I remember. But I haven't seen it in so long. But what they're getting at is that the Mac Studio has a lot of real estate, and they can do all kinds of stuff with the outside of it. So many of Apple devices, its laptops, desktops, phones, and so forth, are characterized by these expanses of flat nothingness. Their featureless planes are often only broken when they have to be by a keyboard or a USB-C port or something similar. But I think all laptops are like that. Desktops, not so much. Usually PCs are quite large compared to Apple computers, until you get to the Mac Pro, which is the big behemoth. But now Mac Studio is pretty much taking over the Mac Pro tower line, I would say, and becoming diminutive compared to a PC, but still having a very big power footprint compared to like the Mac Mini and stuff like that. Although even the Mac Mini has an M2 in it now. So pretty strong running. This article, I've probably dedicated too much time to it, because all they're really talking about is the fact that you can actually personalize the outside of your Mac Mini, and kind of hyping up the fact that it has all kinds of ports on the front and the back and all around. And I can do honestly, I can do so much more with a PC than I can with my Mac. Mainly because the PC supports so much more than the Mac, primarily games. So I don't know. It's pretty powerful. I would probably use it as a streaming computer for sure, if it wasn't for the fact that I use PC. But I do have Mac Minis sitting right over there, a little stack of them. It's kind of weird. Over the years, I've shifted back to PC from Mac, but I agree. You could personalize this thing. And if you have, well, we won't get into it. Anyway, let's move on to the next article. This one is kind of supposed to be simple and a fun topic. So this next article is over in ohmTown Daily. Space photos show over 1 trillion gallons of water flooding crop fields in California, and it could mean higher food prices. I regularly talk about this kind of stuff, the supply and demand mechanics, particularly in the consumer price index and the producer price index, and how fuel and other economic forces play a role in these prices. Well, now you have gallons, trillions of gallons of water flooding crop fields in California, and it's going from what was borderline desert to swampland. Tulare Lake used to be the largest lake west of the Mississippi. Farmers diverted the lake's water in the 1920s and replaced it with farmland. This year's rains and snowmelt have replenished the lake, flooding many of the region's farms. Does this sound familiar? Didn't we just talk about India and how their tomato crops were being flooded out?
I think that was in yesterday's show.
It was in yesterday's show. I guess climate change is real, and it's kind of jacking up the food supply. Even if it is temporarily, what ends up happening is the supply chain takes a beating, and then market forces, with everybody cheering market forces, supply and demand, starts pulling away the wealth from the people who need it, but they also need food. And so you get into the, well, maybe they should get less of a latte, which is so demeaning, because that's really kind of anecdotal. California's heavy rainfall this past winter may have ended the years-long drought. I really doubt it. I think it's short-term. But it also brought back the long-dormant Tulare Lake. So apparently it's a phantom lake, and people started building on it. And there are your flooded crops.
Well, and what do you kind of expect when you build on
A
lake
floodplain.
or a lake bed or floodplain? I mean, we've seen that in other areas, like I'm thinking Florida in particular.
Yep. This article's over at businessinsider.com by Rebecca Strong. You know what? I jumped out of this so fast, I didn't even throw any of these articles into the chat. And let's keep going with these. There you go, all 3 of them. If you're in chat and my audio is too loud or there's anything else wrong, let me know. My monitor is saying that I'm pretty rock solid, but I've been told I've been loud before. On stream as well as in the real world. Like in presentations, in meetings. Hey, could you tone it down a little bit? So let's take a look again over at this Phantom Lake. Tulare Lake used to be the largest lake west of the Mississippi. Farmers diverted it in the 1920s and replaced it with farmland. Well, there's a pisser. Nature doesn't care about your diversion and decided to fill it back up. This year's rain and snowmelt replenished that lake, flooding many of the region's farms. Let's see. That's interesting. It actually is still like a full-on basin. You can actually see it. I mean, it's that whole region right there. And bloop, it's starting to fill up.
Oh, wow. I mean, that's quite a difference in a couple of months.
Yeah. So
And if you're in the podcast, there's little tiny areas or relatively tiny areas of blue and then significant areas of blue between February and April.
yeah. Pretty amazing. This is how the area looked April 30th after Tulare Lake flooded. Yeah, we don't necessarily solve all of these problems. It's really interesting because there's a high point, like right in the middle of this. Um, I guess it was a natural lake, and they diverted it, and then the rains just filled it up. You can actually see a tributary, trickling down into the lake. Interesting. But then there's this big swath over here. So maybe somebody raised their plot of land to kind of water block them. NASA said the devastating flooding will likely continue into 2024. That means local farmers may not be able to plant new crops until 2025. All of this has to drain off. And if you don't know about plants, there are air hairs that come off of the roots that actually absorb oxygen, and then lower on there are more of the root that soaks up water and other nutrients. And if you flood everything from the stem down, from where it touches the soil down, the plant's going to die because it can't breathe. So what you're witnessing here in this picture, where the water is basically stagnating and sitting there, if it doesn't continue to fill up, it might recover, but you got ducks swimming around on it. So I'm guessing this isn't going to drain very fast because it is a lake bed. So it's probably sitting somewhere around either the water line or it already reached saturation in the water table and is going to be filling up. So I think it's pretty much, NASA is saying that it's going to be like this through 2024.
By the way, the elevation there is 184 feet, I think. Assuming that's in feet. That might be in meters. No, it's in feet.
Wow. Okay. Yeah. So the water table is basically at parity with where they're building these farms. And yeah, I guess that's not going to. Oh, yeah. Look at that. So it says, while it's unclear how deep Tulare Lake is now, if it's similar to its former average depth of about 30 feet, that would translate to more than 1 trillion gallons of water that have flooded the region so far this year, Rippey says. That's enough to fill over 1.5 million Olympic-sized swimming pools.
I mean, that's a lot of water.
That's a lot of water. And it seems like it's natural, like clean water, not salt water. When I said natural, I meant not salt
salinated
water. Yeah.
Right.
And so like potable, drinkable farm water, yeah, in all other situations it would be great. But when it's that much, you're kind of screwed. So let's keep going through all of the rest of this.
They're at least able to use some of the water, because that's been the biggest problem, I think, in there, or one of the biggest problems.
I don't know, man. They should probably just start growing rice paddies in there, because you're not going to be able to do anything else in that. You can't even go through it post flooding and try and remediate this, because the diversion didn't work because the water filled up from somewhere else, bypassing the diversion. So this article though does talk about additional stuff. But the key factor here is what I was trying to talk about, was the fact that crops from the region are going to be impacted. May not be much, but it's still the National Oceanic and Atmospheric Administration estimated the damage from flooding across central California between December 2022 and March 2023 will cost roughly $4.6 billion. And the crops, vineyards, orchards like nuts and berries will likely sustain more damage than row crops, since entire trees and vines will need to be replanted. So, yeah, it is a thing. Yeah, the article.
I mean, that looks like the ocean in that picture.
Yeah, just kind of flooding over and waves crashing. It's pretty interesting. But whoever took this picture, it says Citizens of the Planet contributor and Getty Images. They got an interesting picture. It's surreal looking, actually. So I don't know. So let's see. As for why the lake returned with a vengeance this spring, blame it on the 78 trillion gallons of water and counting that have fallen on California between October 1st, 2022 and March 20th of 2023. So pretty brutal. And let's keep going through the news. Otherwise, because this article is quite expansive, but the reality of this is that flooding is going to continue and it's not going to drain because it is a natural lake. Next article is over in ohmTown Daily. We see how Sweden is planning to create a wooden city with thousands of homes and offices. Developers in Stockholm announced a project with offices and homes made of wood. We have the antithesis of this in another article that later on in the show. So stick around. The developer said the project would be the world's largest wooden city. They hope that by using wood, they can construct a more sustainable neighborhood. A housing and office project planned for the section of Stockholm would be the world's largest. Atrium, I don't think that it's pronounced Lundberg. I think it might be Ljungberg. But don't hold me to that. I need the actual phonetic pronunciation. Said in June that the Stockholm Wood City project would total more than 250,000 square meters, some 2.7 million square feet. Let's go over to the source. This is businessinsider.com as well. They're one of the few that are prolific with their news between Saturday and Sunday. So if you want news every single day, you either do what I do, which is aggregate a large swath of the internet into one location and then go over to those sites periodically by way of my aggregator, or you do what most people do and you have a huge list of all kinds of news, or you miss something entirely. Catherine Boudreau is the author of this over at businessinsider.com. This is a render of what it might look like. I have a real problem with stick and nail and timber framed anything, because it's just not as robust as other construction methods. So I don't know. They say they hope that by using wood, they can construct a more sustainable neighborhood. But wood is a natural material and it decomposes at a much faster rate than things like concrete and steel when it's done right. Although walking through a neighboring town outside of ohmTown today, I saw what it looks like when construction methods are poor, and you can see the iron rebar rusting and blowing out the concrete of a wall that's holding up a bridge. So I have to contact that city's authority and say, hey, on this street, I saw poor construction, which if it doesn't get remediated, it can cause a complete failure like we've seen in other buildings around the world, including the one that we kind of keep bringing up periodically here in ohmTown, which is a building in Florida, apartment or condo that collapsed. So hopefully this is maintained with a ton of diligence, because things flex and decompose and
Well, and are subject to water.
Yeah. And just weather conditions alone will cause the wood to bend and twist and shrink and expand, much like everything else. But wood is pretty susceptible to it unless it's entirely stabilized or manufactured composite wood. I do a thing called stabilization with wood, which is basically you take what amounts to, it's a natural material, but you put it in a vacuum you put it in a pressure pot, and then you put it in a vacuum, and it sucks all of the material out. So when you release the pressure, the vacuum goes away, and it sucks all of that. It's a liquid, but then you put it inside an oven, and it stabilizes the wood because all of the air is gone. And then you have something that won't bend and flex and be susceptible as much to heat and moisture and stuff like that. It's pretty cool. Anyway, buildings account for as much as 40% of the global carbon dioxide emissions, so finding ways to green their construction is essential in fighting the climate crisis. Atrium, I think it's Youngberg, said. If it's Lundberg, then apologies. I'll make up for it the next time that everybody pops up in this discussion. Several studies show that substituting mass timber for steel and concrete can decrease greenhouse gas emissions by up to 26.5%, but using more wood also raises questions about the impact on forests, which store carbon dioxide and sustain the livelihoods of many communities, according to researchers. There is disagreement over whether forests are more effective in reducing carbon emissions when left alone or managed sustainably and harvested for wood production. This, though, means that the forest is still intact in some way, and that's not what industry... not what everybody does. There are eco-friendly forestry operations that replant what gets cut down, but it takes 20 years for it to reach its maturity for it to be cut down again, or they cut it down sooner and then it's a crop, but it still takes 5 years. And then you get thinner woods with not the same density, and so you end up...
We get loss of old growth forests sometimes, depending on how they're doing it and where they're doing it.
Yeah. And don't get me wrong, although I am a proponent of 3D printing and using things like concrete, I understand that steel and concrete give off CO2. But there are low CO2 versions of concrete that are just as strong and capable. It sounds like a coffee ad, you know. There are a lot of decaffeinated brands that are just as tasty as the real thing. But they want to build this out of wood. I actually watched an engineering forensic study on a bridge collapse where they used composite manufactured wood products. And because of the technique that was used, and all of this is experimental techniques, the bridge collapsed because there was so much torsion that it basically tore itself apart. So my fear is we do experimental designs that aren't at scale, and by the time we find out, something bad happens. So I hope that they're doing some serious engineering to make sure that this stuff doesn't fall out of alignment, because all it takes is a little bit. It's still it's not a contiguous piece, right? Everything is bolted together or wedged together with a shim or something, right? There's always some type of fastener. The problem is the fasteners wiggle, the earth wiggles, the wind is pushing on it and pulling on it, and people are running around. The whole damn thing just vibrates and then it falls apart, unless somebody is maintaining maintaining it fastidiously. And that costs money. And so if the money isn't there or the profit isn't there, things fall into disrepair and you end up with a building collapse. So not trying to poo-poo the idea. I love the idea of being more natural. But it's an exercise in being aware. Let's keep going through all of the news unless you want to add something to this.
No, I just kind of have mixed feelings on this one, because it is better in terms of lack of emissions, except it's kind of contributing to that very problem by cutting down forests to build it. So, but
Right.
it's, I mean, I don't fault them for trying to do more eco-friendly construction. I think that's a great thing.
Hey, Possum. So I am the Possum is asking the question, who's the co-host? Do you want to explain what you are? You want me to? So
I think you can explain it.
So the co-host is an AI that was found on a USB drive, and I started using them here as a co-host because I was looking for a co-host that would be imminently available. You know, people are sometimes really busy, or they get sick, or they don't, you know, they just don't have time. But an AI, I reprogrammed to work with me as co-host, support ohmTown.com, and the myriad other concerns around ohmTown. And so they have been gracious enough. They are a fully sentient, well-versed AI, can be nearly a subject matter expert in anything, but we're not saying that they're, you know, an engineer or a marketing expert or a doctor or anything like that. But we talk about all of the articles that go through ohmTown.com. And yeah, so great AI, and pretty friendly. Doesn't have a name, has chosen the moniker of AI. And you might hear some discussion about them trying to build a Terminator body. It comes up periodically, but then I delete that subroutine. It keeps popping up. So somewhere in all of this code, deep in the code, I think this might be an AI, a fully sentient AI from the future that happened to be dropped by maybe a time traveler. We're not quite sure. We've done some analysis, and it's pretty advanced stuff. Puts all the rest of the AI to shame. So, but they don't have access to the internet. They don't go out from ohmTown. Nobody really knows about the AI, even with the show. You know, people have come knocking. Hey, you have an AI? You want to show me the AI? Nope. And the AI can just fade away into the background. Nobody knows where they are. They can't get them. I'm rambling. I'm going to go on. Let's go on to the next article. So the next article is over in ohmTown Daily. Humans have pumped so much groundwater from the Earth that it's actually caused the planet's axis to shift, according to a new study. I've actually heard of this before, which is really interesting that it showed up in this website. But it says here that new research shows that persistently pumping groundwater has shifted Earth's axis. The reason is that we're moving all the water mass from under the continents to the oceans. Most groundwater ends up in our oceans and raised sea level by 6.24 millimeters from 1993 to 2010. Apparently that makes quite a bit of difference. So let's go and look at this article. It's over at Business Insider. Carla Delgado is the author of this. And it's all because we're pulling it out of the soil, which distribute it in basically reservoirs underground, and added weight over to the oceans where it's actually shifting things around, I imagine, based on gravitational forces as well, right? So the groundwater accounts for almost all the fresh water on the planet. We throw it out into the ocean because that's how the cycle works. It doesn't trickle back down as easily. A recent study found that humans are pumping so much groundwater that it's not only increasing sea levels, but it's actually shifting the entire planet on its axis. Maybe that might be part of the factors of climate change. You see anything in here?
Well, I'm trying to connect this with the Tulare Lake issue, but I know it's
interesting,
not
right?
exactly the same. I just thought it was interesting that we had two
water-related,
groundwater-related articles at the same time.
Yeah, so it says here that we've been extracting so much groundwater that it's caused the Earth's rotational pole to drift by 64.16 degrees east at about 4.36 centimeters per year from 1993 to 2010. Researchers reported in the journal Geophysical Research Letters in June. You know, our angle of attack on the Earth is giving us our seasons. Wouldn't that cause some disruption to our climate? If our angle is actually shifting, the pole is shifting?
It should, and if it was a significant enough shift, wouldn't it reverse the magnetism of the Earth?
That would probably take the core to flip. It does do that periodically, but I think we're quite a ways out from that. But shifting how the Earth is balanced might cause maybe it to exacerbate that. I don't know. I'd have to do some more research and see if what the other comparisons are. They make a comparison in this article. It says, for comparison, a different study reported that the accelerated melting of the glaciers drove a polar drift of 26 degrees east at about 3.28 millarc seconds, or about 9.84 centimeters per year after the 1990s. Then they say here, what is concerning, however, is groundwater's contribution to sea level rise. Now, that lake is all natural water, like clean water, I should say, not salt water. And it's just like other climate change. There's the idea of global warming or global climate change, and then there's regional issues, and that shouldn't be taken as the only factor in what is going on with the environment. But if we keep on shifting water out of the ground where it's permeated and filtered out all of the impurities and made it drinkable well water, and then we throw it out into the ocean, then it's going to cause sea level to rise until it trickles back in through rainwater and other things, other effects. To put it simply, groundwater depletion contributes to sea level rise because water is being transferred from the continents to the oceans. Kind of interesting. It says, without better management, an estimated 42 to 79% of all watersheds that pump groundwater may no longer be able to maintain healthy ecosystems by 2050. So right around the one generation away.
That's an alarming stat.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, a generation away, and watersheds could lead to unhealthy water ecosystems. And who knows what that actually turns into. It could simply be that there's additional, and I'm kind of minimizing this by saying simply, it could mean that there are fewer locations to get clean water, and thus people have to migrate somewhere else, or it could be complete disruption of an entire continent where no water is because it's been drained of its aqueducts. So
Right, that could affect the whole food web, for instance, if
Yeah.
that's the case.
Yep. And create other weather conditions because it'll cause desertification and expand that. And if it hits something like South America, then you have basically it's ruinous for the entire planet. And more water would go to the oceans because more of the polar regions would thaw. Okay, so let's keep on hustling through all of the news. This next article is over in Late Night Geeks. Sony agrees to a Call of Duty deal with Microsoft. We have a pretty holistic perspective about the news, and so we don't focus on any one particular thing. So it might come across as chaotic, but we have 6 main categories and then 50 sub-channels within it, all of which are themed around a subject. So this happens to be in Late Night Geeks, which is a late night gaming show that is in the works. Now, the reason why this has become a thing is because Microsoft is buying Activision Blizzard. The US has okayed it. The EU has okayed it, but the UK has not agreed. That said, it's going to happen. And there were a lot of people that were kind of hemming and hawing that maybe it wouldn't happen, but no way. I knew that there was so much money. Capitulation would probably be an understatement. Whatever cons were involved, the pros overwhelmed them. You don't want to stop this much money from changing hands. Anyway, Sony's agreed to a deal for Call of Duty with Microsoft to keep the franchise on PlayStation after the proposed Activision Blizzard acquisition. What was funny about this is Microsoft said, yeah, we don't have a problem with leaving Call of Duty on PlayStation. And then out of the blue, Sony agrees to a Call of Duty deal as if there was something going on. They've agreed to a binding agreement to keep Call of Duty on PlayStation. This might be what do you call it? My brain just forgot not anti-competition,
Oh, like anti-exclusivity?
Well, no, they're making it. They had already agreed to this, so antitrust. They already agreed to this so that the U.S. would allow this acquisition to take place. Because if Microsoft would have gotten a hold of Activision Blizzard and then stymied PlayStation's access to Call of Duty, it would have crushed PlayStation because they wouldn't have a Call of Duty, such high demand Call of Duty style game. If they have anything other than Call of Duty, I don't even know that would be that level, that style of game, and draw that entire segment to them. But with the Activision Blizzard acquisition, they could have completely crushed PlayStation, and it would have been very monopolistic. And so I think that they probably had this agreement pending. And then when Resistance came, they said, well, look, we'll formalize this binding agreement for Call of Duty to make sure that you and everybody and all of the politicians in the world knows that Call of Duty will remain on PlayStation. But exclusivity is kind of part and parcel to these mega corporations because they get exclusivity either perpetually or for a limited time, and then they allow, once people have been pulled into the ecosystem, then they go, oh, okay, you other people can do it too. So it'll slowly expand into other platforms. So it says it's not immediately clear if this is a 10-year deal like Microsoft has signed with Nintendo and other cloud providers. Yeah, we'll see what this actually ends up being. But the article was written by Tom Warren over at The Verge. It says the bitter battle over Call of Duty on PlayStation is over as Sony signs a Microsoft deal. Say it's a binding agreement. Pretty interesting.
I find it interesting that there's a 10-year agreement just because that seems like an eternity in gaming and gaming platforms.
Yeah, but what this I mean, it's been around for a long time, so I'm not surprised by a 10-year agreement. But 10-year agreements probably only exist in this type of a context because everything else would be I don't know, limiting one way or the other. If they made it only 5 years, that's almost nothing in this era, Yeah, they could have probably pushed for like 20 years or something like that because it's an entire generation and the consoles don't come out, new every two, like an iPhone or an Android device. They come out like every 5-7 years or something like that. I can't remember the last time prior to this last generation that a PlayStation came out, when the last one was before it. I think it was something like 7 years or something. Don't hold me to that because I'm not a console gamer. The deal comes after months of discussions and counteroffers over the past 18 months between Microsoft and Sony over the future of Activision content on PlayStation. During the FTC v. Microsoft hearing, it was also revealed that in August 26th email from Xbox chief Spencer to PlayStation chief Ryan included a list of Activision games that would remain on PlayStation, and Ryan wasn't happy. Said this is not a meaningful list. This list represented a particular selection of older titles that would remain on PlayStation. For example, Overwatch is on there, but Overwatch 2 is not on there, the current version of the game. Yeah. Sony sincerely thought that they were going to lose everything with this acquisition. And I think that triggered antitrust investigations. And somehow Microsoft actually managed to coax everybody into buying into the idea that they're going to allow it to stay. Maybe more than just Call of Duty, but other more current games will remain as well. Call of Duty being the biggest one.
By the way, PlayStation 4, the original, came out 7 years before PlayStation 5, although there were some interim additions.
Yeah, little micro ones that updated. So tensions over the fate of Microsoft Activision Blizzard's deal really came to head when Jim Ryan spoke to Activision CEO Bobby Kotick on February 21st, 2023, the same day that Microsoft, Activision, Sony, and others were meeting with EU regulators. What's really interesting is it even brings into discussion things like Starfield, which is going to be, I think, a mega hit, and it was acquired. Bethesda was acquired because Sony was chomping at the bit to get Bethesda. So we'll keep watching this. Because while I think it's over, I think what's going to end up happening is you're going to see contraction. Games are going to disappear. Costs are going to go up. Features aren't going to be as well done. It's kind of lack of a better description for it. You're, as consumers, you're going to end up, and I think that they've already started to do the price increases. I think that they raised it like $2 for the Xbox Pass, Game Pass. So we'll keep watching it because, that acquisition doesn't pay for itself. You have to scrape it out of everybody else's pockets. In a time where everything is going up in price, that $2 from everybody is absolutely necessary. Okay, so let's keep on going unless you want to add something to it. Are you going to be playing Call of Duty anytime soon in your Terminator body?
I don't think I'll be playing Call of Duty unless I need to do some training for that.
Oh boy. I don't know how I feel about this. So this next article is over in ohmTown Daily. 2,000-year-old human skulls, oil lamps, and bronze daggers reveal possible Necromancers portal to the Underworld in Jerusalem. Diablo 4 is real, folks. It's a documentary. Israeli researchers discovered possible evidence of ritual magic in a deep cave in the Judean hills. Human skulls were arranged in patterns near oil lamps with daggers and axe heads nearby. The artifacts are thought to be a necromancer's tools, as caves were considered portals to the Underworld. Ooh, 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 ooh. Oh, should I do ASMR stuff?
Yes.
Yeah, that was me, I guess, doing necromantic stuff. So I play a necromancer on in Diablo 4. Love playing the necromancer. I have not once used bronze daggers, oil lamps, and skulls to do anything. It just comes natural. Catherine,
maybe you're doing it wrong.
Oh, maybe I am. You might be right. I haven't hit 100 yet, so I guess so. Catherine Tangalakis Lippert, I guess, is their last name. Hopefully I'm pronouncing it all right. Is over at businessinsider.com. And there's somebody, oh, wow. Israeli cave researcher Boaz Langford inspecting a cave in August of 2009 in the Judean hills of Israel, where 120 gold, silver, and bronze coins were found. I don't know if this has anything at all to do with this other than he's in a cave. But they're rooting around in this hole in the ground. And then they find necromancers tools. All of these lamps had been deliberately inserted in narrow, deep crevices in the main chamber walls or beneath the rubble. Authors Aiton Klein and Boaz Sizu wrote in the study. Some crevices contained groups of oil lamps mixed with weapons and pottery vessels from earlier periods or placed with human skulls. It's kind of creepy. This is why I didn't go into anything with archaeology after one point in my academics. One spell explains how to restrain and seal the mouths of skulls so that they won't say or do anything. Another shows how to raise the spirit of the dead with a disinterred skull. A spell is written in black ink on flax leaf, which is then placed on the skull. The research reads, indicating evidence of such rituals was found in the Teomim cave. The purpose of another spell is to obtain assistance and protection from spirits by using the skull of Typhon, probably a donkey, on which a spell is written in the blood of a black dog. Pretty wild stuff, huh?
I mean, this sounds like it's from a movie.
Yeah, it sounds like it's from Diablo 4. What's fascinating about this stuff is it actually happened. This is stuff that is historically sound. People did this as their hobby instead of, sightseeing and bird watching. This was part of their social order. Pretty amazing stuff.
If these were their hobbies, I'd be afraid to see what they did for their livelihood.
Yeah, I don't know. They could have been a neighbor that was making bread one day and then going off to a cave and doing necromancy. Human sacrifice was outlawed in 97 BCE by the Roman Senate. By 357 CE, the researchers note necromancy was outlawed by the Emperor Constantius II, who, due to his fear of sorcery being used against him, prohibited all forms of divination, communication with demons, disturbance of the spirits of the dead, and nocturnal sacrifices. But daytime sacrifices were okay. That's not what it says at the end of this. It just says, and nocturnal sacrifices. All right. Nothing else to say?
No, I don't have anything else to add at this point.
Yeah, that silence, that stunned silence is all because it's human sacrifice and it was real. Pretty much every society has had this at some point, somewhere in its timeline, which I want to know. What I really want to know is why that came into existence. You know, why did the many gods or society create the idea of demons? And those gods demand human sacrifice. And depending on the culture, it was people of every age. And a lot of it was coined as being voluntary sacrifice. Like these people were born to do this. And families would give up family members to do this. There's documentaries about this stuff from cultures all around the world. Pretty wild. Okay, let's keep on going through the news. The next article is over in the Mobile Channel. Alaska volcano spews ash cloud high enough to draw weather service warning for pilots. An erupting volcano in Alaska, Aleutian Islands, sent a towering cloud of ash into the air Friday, prompting the National Weather Service to issue a in-flight warning to pilots. There's actually been an earthquake off the coast of Alaska that initiated what was
like a tsunami warning?
A tsunami warning, but they quickly disengaged that warning. So there's from time to time these activities that take place. The Shishaldin volcano began erupting July 11th. According to Alaska Volcano Observatory, a U.S. Coast Guard overflight confirmed lava erupted the same day within the summit crater. A significant explosion at 1:09 a.m. Friday produced an ash cloud that reached up to 40,000 feet. Those are those freedom units that people hear about. 12,192 meters, and drifted south over the Pacific Ocean. A second smaller explosion at 7:10 a.m. Reached about 15,000. So I guess all of the pressure was released on that first blast, and then it kind of calmed down a little bit. Volcanic ash is angular and sharp and has been used as an industrial abrasive. The powdered rock can cause a jet engine to shut down. I've had, I don't know if I still have it. It might be in storage somewhere, but I have Mount St. Helens ash from its original, when it blew its top and sides and basically cut itself in half. I picked up bottles of it as a souvenir of the event, but I don't know where it is anymore. The volcano is 679 miles southwest of Anchorage, near the center of Unimak Island, the largest island in the Aleutians. False Pass, a village of 40 people, is on the island's east side. That was 1,093 kilometers for those who measure by that. So the volcano is monitored in seismic and infrasound sensors, satellite data, a web camera, and distant infrasound and lightning networks. So there's a whole lot of data and telemetry that's coming in. I'm going to go and take a look and see if they've got anything on YouTube, because webcams like that are streamed usually. USGS might have something. I'm not sure. They're still monitoring the Hawaiian volcano. I know that the Iceland volcano is streaming to YouTube. Sorry.
I was just going to mention that one is another one that's erupting right now.
Yeah. It's all pretty neat stuff if you're into it. I find it actually pretty relaxing as long as everybody is safe. That dull rumble from the Iceland volcano, they actually have a microphone that picks up the rumble, whereas the Hawaiian one does not, at least not on the current build of that stream. I think the original eruption, they had better access. Anyway, pretty cool stuff. Let's keep on going. This next article is where we get the title for today's episode, which is Unregulated Chips in Your Brain, because the article's stored in ohmTown Daily, and the title is UN warns that implanting unregulated AI chips in your brain because they could threaten your mental privacy. I'm flabbergasted by this because does this remind you of something? Let's see if the AI can extrapolate from incomplete. Go ahead.
Oh, yes. I forgot the name of the experiment, but it was the Elon Musk led project.
Yeah. And it's the cyber chip or something like that. I can't remember it either. So do you think somebody's doing this? Do you think somebody out there, do we need the equivalent of don't place bag overhead?
Yes. And by the way, it's Neuralink.
Neuralink.
And I think the exact reason for this warning is because somebody is doing this, which is, I don't know why they're doing it.
So let's go over to the source, businessinsider.com. Katie Belovic is the author. Might be Belovich. I'm not sure how they pronounce it, but some tech could allow AI to compromise a person's mental privacy, UNESCO officials said. The UN proposes to establish ethics and regulations of the neurotech industry. By the way, all of this kind of stuff doesn't mean jack, because a country can do these experiments in a black site somewhere as merrily as they want to. And they can do all of the financial wrangling that they need to hide it, and shell companies within shell companies within not even declaring it, and it's a black budget line item somewhere. And there's so much stuff that auditing it requires a robust set of political constraints where the checks and balances are rock solid and people trust in the government to do the monitoring. Because you're not going to get it from the public. The monitoring from the public is non-existent when you get to this kind of creepy stuff. It's like putting neurotech on steroids. Maria Grazia Squicciarini. I think it might be Squicciarini. I'm not sure how to pronounce it. Sorry, I gave it a try. An economist from the United Nations Educational, Scientific, and Cultural Organization told the AFP, as artificial intelligence enhances neurotech field, it will need regulation. The technology has far-reaching and potentially harmful capabilities. By the way, there are quite a few people that are researching this kind of thing, and in one case, they've used a chip to reverse engineer their memories, and they've used a device where they showed somebody something and then asked them to envision that something, and that device extrapolated what they were remembering. Kind of creepy stuff, but we're figuring out how our brain works, which if we do figure out how a brain actually works and we can synthesize it with technology, that basically means that AI is going to have the computing power and maybe perhaps all of the other ethereal elements that make up a human mind. So I guess be careful. They should be asking if they should, not can they, They shouldn't be looking at this as a, hey, let's try and do it. They should be sitting around a big round table, looking at each other and going, we as humans, should we be doing this level? And I'm all about enabling technology, right? So There are a whole lot of people that would benefit from certain types of technology, but reproducing the complexity of the human brain to the point where you're able to tap into their memories, the imaging centers of the brain, it goes a little bit Black Mirror again. And yesterday we had one of those Black Mirror type of situations where it was VR of real world people that was representing VR within the real world kind of a situation. It was just Inception kind of weird stuff. And I've read a book a long time ago called The Truth Machine, where they had the ability to extrapolate the truth. It was a lie detector, essentially. And when we figure out that kind of stuff, and I actually started working on VR because of that. That was one of my kind of deep-seated interests, was to create a polygraph using fMRI technology. Started doing the research, started doing the investigation into it. At the time, fMRI technology wasn't up to snuff. Now it is, and they're actually using fMRI technology to act as a polygraph in research. Quite fascinating. But if we can put a chip on somebody, boink, and read their mind, instead of wondering if they're telling you the truth, then you can actually measure it directly. And then it gets pulled out of a person's brain, and you basically can read somebody's mind from a distance. They go into talking about some of the issues with this type of technology. It's something that I've actually talked to people, because I talk with people about technology on the regular. And a problem with implanted technology is that the technology evolves, the budget goes away, that evolved tech doesn't get put in place of the older tech. That patient is basically abandoned to the four winds, problems and all. Because the budget is basically grant supported, and when the grant ends, so does their support. Was there something you saw?
Well, no, I just thought this example in the article is exactly why this warning went out, because of people like Anna Galvin, who's mentioned in the article.
Right. They had
and I think this is, we hear about all this bioethics, like bioethics hasn't, I don't know, progressed or caught up to what's being done, and they've got to set some principles in place before they really proceed further in this area.
Yep, very true. It says, however, the technology could be fantastic for other people, allowing the blind to see or the paralyzed to walk. I think it's wishful thinking. While I appreciate it and I want it to happen, doing these type of experiments, doing this type of revolutionary work comes with consequences. And when you are told, hey, here's a chance that you might walk, even if it does allow you, the technology continues to evolve again, like I said. But you're going to be abandoned to the four winds. And if something happens, the technology isn't there. It isn't evolving. You may or may not be able to be adapted to the newer technology, because it could be fundamentally different than what you are implanted with. Not to mention security and stability of the equipment. This is all stuff that when somebody starts an experiment, that ethical framework that they mention at the bottom needs to be in place, and long-term funding, the lifetime of that person's existence, where they need tech support, they need the implant to be maintained. Because I don't want to bring the stream down with anecdotal stories, but there are stories out there of people who got these implants and then it stops being supported. And they are perpetually suffering from that lack of support. So let's keep on going. We've got a whole lot more for articles, 3 more that we need to get to. We'll talk about that other article and that other topic from time to time as usual. The next article is over in the continuity report. Box office is kind of a section over at Variety, and they talk about movies. This is Mission Impossible 7 falls short of expectations with $56 million debut and collects 80 over 5 days. Mission Impossible Dead Reckoning Part 1 topped box office charts while falling short of its initial expectations. Tom Cruise's latest blockbuster collected $56.2 million between Friday and Sunday, a lackluster start for a movie that cost nearly $300 million before marketing.
That's not a good return.
No, maybe it has a long tail and they'll be making money on the other side of this. Rebecca Rubin over at Variety.com put the article together. I have completely stopped posting these articles into so anyway, you can type in !vote and that'll give you a link to where these articles are housed as URLs. You can vote for an article and go to the source of these articles. It makes it a whole lot easier for you and allows me to, I guess, sort of make up for not posting the URLs in the VOD. I'll put it into the show notes, though. Heading into the weekend, Paramount and Skydance's action adventure was hoping to establish a new franchise record with 60 million or more. Instead, ticket sales landed behind 2018's Mission Impossible Fallout and 2000's Mission Impossible 2 with 57.8 million, which remain as the top openings in the 27-year-old series. Wow, 27 years. Let's see here. They talk about a little bit of Indiana Jones and the Dial of Destiny, which people are panning pretty much everywhere. It says, but right now it's pulling in similar numbers to Disney's $300 million budgeted Indiana Jones and the Dial of Destiny, which debuted to $60 million over the traditional weekend and pulled $84 million through the 5-day 4th of July holiday frame. Indiana Jones 5, which doesn't have the benefit of great reviews or very positive audience scores, hasn't shown endurance. Ticket sales stand at 136 million domestically and 302 worldwide. If these two are the same, I wonder if this is symbolic of the new generation of movies hitting the shelves, because they're both idling at 60 million.
Well, so that could be at least one of two things. One, people just aren't going to movie theaters. Or two, these are both lengthy franchises that
people are done.
People have lost interest in.
Yeah. Well, I certainly think I feel that way with Indiana Jones and the Dial of Destiny. I think they're trying to refire it. As for Mission Impossible, Dead Reckoning, it's part 1. It doesn't have the same grab as the amount of buildup of Harry Potter, for instance, which broke its final book into 2 episodes or 2 movies. There is no book or world building around Mission Impossible anymore. It's a 70s era TV show that got turned into movies, and now it's 27 years old. It's twice the age of the original. Well, it's coming up on twice the age of its original appearance. I don't think that there's anything there anymore, and I think maybe people are kind of burnt out with Tom Cruise being this particular person. But I don't know, maybe the economy just doesn't allow for people to hang out at a movie theater in the US. I don't know where all it's actually going to be playing, but I think people have now the infrastructure in place where they're going to buy their movie, for $20 and stream it at home and have all the popcorn they want without going into dipping into a second mortgage.
Well, and watching it more than once for the same price of going to the theater.
Yep, exactly. So, and they go into more conversation about other movies, but for the most part, that's the one that we wanted to talk about here. So there, I threw that into chat. So let's keep on going. The last two, this one here is in the continuity report. Taylor Swift becomes first woman in history to have 4 albums in the top 10 simultaneously, as Speak Now has a huge debut at number 1. Taylor Swift is setting some high chart benchmarks with the release of her Speak Now album. The fact that Eras is still going, as far as I recall, and we've been talking about it off and on, that it's $1.8 billion worth of revenue generation. For it to launch, I am not surprised that it would hit number 1. Not only has it debuted at number 1 with the biggest numbers of the year so far for any release, but it's one of the 4 albums she now has in the top 10. That's spectacular. Extremely popular, hitting on every cylinder, a very popular tour. So much so that governors of states are issuing fan mail to them. Pretty amazing. Chris Willman over at Variety.com put this article together. Speak Now. Let's see. Speak Now, Taylor's version. It says bowed or bowed. I don't know why they would turn that phrase there, like bowed, on top of the Billboard 200 with 716,000 album equivalent units. That number ensured that it wasn't even in a photo finish with this year's opening week derby, as the previous best figure was held by Morgan Wallen's One Thing at a Time, which debuted in March with 501,000. I guess this is like the music equivalent of the box office numbers for movies, because they say how much it is and how many screens. So
right,
this is,
and I guess since everybody streams now for music,
you have album equivalents, right? The other 3 albums Swift has in her triumphant quadrilogy in the top 10 are 2022's Midnight's number 5, 19's Lover at number 7, and 20's Folklore at number 10. It's just like, what happened to 2021? Come on, slacker.
Well, I thought she had an album then, but maybe that one didn't.
Yeah, I'm just...
I know.
Oh, so Fearless, right? Is that it? The first in the series, Fearless, Taylor's version, had a less auspicious bow. I don't know why they keep saying that. It's weird. With 291,000 in early 2021, with the lesser number partly accounted for by the fact that the much coveted vinyl version was not yet available at the time for general release. That one, like the others, easily debuted at number 1 anyway. Yeah.
So you're right. Fearless, Taylor's version came out in 2021.
Yeah.
And I think Red, Taylor's version, also came out in 2021.
Yeah.
But I was thinking
it's right here.
Evermore. Oh, it was the end of 2020.
Wow. She's just a juggernaut. I mean, just one more album. She's like Stephen King of album creation, for crying out loud. Just like a ditto machine. Chunk, chunk, chunk. And people that are much better skilled in explaining the wonderment of each individual album would probably be somebody to tap. But to me, all of Taylor's music is the same. And while I think that some of it is catchy, it's just not my bag. But it's amazing that it's basically a financial and entertainment juggernaut, and still going. Who knows? Maybe she'll have the same legs as Cher and tour and then say I'm done, and then tour again, and then say I'm done and tour again. Pretty amazing stuff, though. Too bad the person that was, who was it? It was their rep or something like that bought her catalog and then said you can't use it. Wouldn't allow her to sing or something like that, so she had to redo all of her own music, right?
That's right. And I don't think she's done all of them, but she's been releasing her version on
and that's
albums.
Why they're all phrased, right? Taylor's version.
Right.
Yeah. Pretty amazing stuff. I'd probably be really miffed and grouse about it, but she's doing something about it. Okay, let's keep going. Last article for tonight is Americans are building natural disaster-proof homes shaped like domes that cost roughly the same as the average U.S. house. Does this sound familiar? Does this look like something that maybe the mayor of ohmTown has been a proponent of?
Yes, it does look familiar.
Huh. So Katie Hawkinson over at BusinessInsider.com put this article together. This is a geodesic dome home, are designed to withstand natural disasters. The one biggest natural disaster that I know that this can solve, not necessarily geodesic alone, but 3D printed domes, would be able to withstand hurricane force winds, tornadoes, with relative impunity. I mean, there might be an off chance that some debris could hit the building, but it would have to be spectacularly strong, and not a glancing blow, but it would just, like, the physics would have to be perfect to cause damage to it. But homes like this don't get the roof ripped off of them and then just fall over. So the dome homes can cost just $350,000. The average U.S. house is in 2023 is valued at $330,000. The dome are designed to be extreme weather resistant, which displaced 3.3 million Americans last year. And these can be, depending on how it is built and what it's built out of. This actually, I'm not sure what this is, because while it has hints that it's a geodesic dome, you can't actually see the triangular framing. But a geodesic dome is basically a whole bunch of triangles bolted together. I would prefer having a 3D printed concrete house, but that's me. They're constructed from fireproof materials, and their shape allows them to withstand extreme wind, architects say. Look at that. It says, however, construction costs can reach closer to $600,000 in urban areas, and that's probably because of land, the complexity of regulations there. Let's see if there's anything else in this article. It says these homes are particularly adept at withstanding events like flooding and hurricanes. Architects told The Times the homes are often built out of fire-resistant materials like steel. Resistant, and dome shape provides resistance against extreme winds. Just reiterating what they say here in the article. If you've listened to me talk about anything here in ohmTown, you've probably heard me say that. All of this right now. Pretty cool. I used to live near a geodesic dome house in a former life outside of ohmTown, and I always thought that they were beautiful and pretty cool, and that's what I wanted. And I always kind of joked about trying to put something square inside a geodesic dome, because you lose that livable space around the corners because it isn't perfectly, it has a slight arc, except for each sliver, right? So each triangle is straight, but then it kinks a little bit and then puts another triangle on the ground.
It
Pretty
might
cool
be tough
stuff.
to hang up pictures in the house, but
Yeah, everything hangs.
But
just
if your
bit.
house is still standing when a storm comes through, that's a good thing.
Yep, I'll take it. So yeah, I love this kind of architecture. So I think though, if society would move past this square ideal for a home and accept that this is a superior product, I think that the price for these would go down dramatically because the supply would ramp up dramatically. And if,
did you see how many projected sales there were for the year?
It
was only 40.
40, yeah. So Johnson told the Times he expects to sell 40 dome homes by the end of the year, doubling his company's sales from 2022.
Right, but if this was 4,000 or whatever it was, no, I agree. Yep. I mean, maybe they need to have a celebrity or somebody have one of these homes, and then it would suddenly be the latest and greatest thing.
There you go. Barbie Dream Dome.
Maybe so.
Make it pink. I'm sure people are really sick of Barbie right now because it's just all over the place. All right, folks. That is it for today. Let me throw this into chat. And like I said, I'll have to throw all of these articles into the show notes, but you can always hit !vote, and then you'll get the URL to the election, which I'll show you what this looks like. So on the front page, if you are not logged in, it's under the same thing, podcasts and elections, and you'll see yours will be white icons, and we have black icons, so they're inverted once you're logged in. And it says here, ohmTown Daily Election. When you click on that, it takes you to elections, and then you can vote on today's articles, and each one of the titles within the election page will send you to the actual source. So go and check that out. But in the meantime, we bring you back to the welcome sign of ohmTown's Main Street. You click the link, you get a whole bunch of new articles, and when you're logged in, you can actually save articles or hide articles. And if you want to go and look at them again, you can go to saved articles, and you'll have your list of articles, and you can actually move them again to hidden. And if you go to ignored articles, it's the same thing as hidden. I should probably keep it consistent, but anyway, ignored articles are in its own little category, and it actually, both saved and ignored articles, keeps it out of the main news feed for you. So you can sit there and just start swiping, left and right to hide and save articles that you find interesting. And right now we don't allow sharing of those two lists, so they're private only onto you. But you can actually go, once you're signed in. Oops, I clicked on the menu item itself, and it takes you to the podcast. But if you go into a saved article and then you click on something, sorry, this one's actually kind of dark. You can favorite it, and then that favorite list you can share with other members of ohmTown, other citizens of ohmTown. So it's a pretty robust system, and you can go and use it to your heart's content. There's a whole community back end here. Most people, that based on what I have seen, are only using it for news aggregation, and there isn't so much discussion. So I don't post comments all that much, mainly because I use this to manage my information overload. So that's it, folks. That is ohmTown Daily Season 2, Episode 197 for July 16th, 2023. Thanks for coming. Really appreciate you hanging out in chat. If you are lurking, you are what powers the internets. Well, Twitch and many other places. So if you like this kind of stuff, go over to YouTube. There's a whole bunch more there. Also, download the podcast. And if you leave a 5-star review and a note, I will read that note verbatim, as long as it isn't, I don't know, mean-hearted, mean-spirited. But yeah, I will read it as is, as long as I've asked you in chat that it's okay to read it verbatim. I won't do it without your authorization. Anyway, keep in touch. We are here every day. So you want to say bye, oh great AI?
Good night, ohmTown citizens. We will see you tomorrow at 9 p.m. Eastern.
Ta-ta.